Hello and welcome to our physical sciences session. My name is Temba. Today we are focusing our attention on different types of changes in as far as matter is concerned. So what we know by now is that matter consists of particles and it exists in any of the three forms in terms of the solid, liquid or gas. So what essentially our lesson seeks to look into for the purpose of today is that we want to see exactly what happens when changes occur in different forms of matter, in terms of also the energy that is also involved in changing the types of matter in terms of the state. Now let's look at the overview of how this topic fits actually into the broader aspect of chemistry that we want to look into for today, right? So if we talk of a change, change can either be physical or chemical. But for now, we want to look at physical changes that occurs in as far as matter is concerned. We know that matter consists of particles. These particles can either be atoms, it could either be molecules, it could be molecules of an element or molecule of a compound, okay? And some of these substances are pure, some are impure. So the impure substances that we know of, we'll talk of mixtures in terms of, homogeneous as well as heterogeneous. Now, seeing that substances exist in any of the three forms, we shall look at how exactly a physical change, okay, and what some of the observations we make in as far as the physical change as well as the chemical change of matter occurs, right? Okay, so the thought that's going to guide our discussion for today is, have you ever thought about the fact that are these changes that you observe in matter different or the same? So we want to look into, differences and similarities, compare and contrast between, different types of changes that matter undergoes under different conditions, that is, right? Okay, now, what are some of the key words that we want to remind ourselves or that we use once too often than others? We talk of phase changes, and remember, when we talk about phase, we're either talking about a substance being a solid, okay? It could be a liquid, okay? It could be a gas, right? Or a combination of any of these three phases. So the changes that occur in as far as a material or a substance is concerned will be a transition between any of these two of the three states of matter. But in some cases, we also have phase changes that involve from solid to gas or vice versa. So our focus is on the phase change, right? Okay, what is it that we know? We know that matter, which has got mass and volume. So any matter anything that's around us and everything around us is matter because it has got mass as well as and occupies volume, right? Occupies space, okay, or it takes space or it has got volume. All right, so it occupies space and it's got volume. It exists in any of the three forms. So when we classify matter, we talk about different types of matter, but the phases or the states in which matter exists are just these three very important ones. It could be a solid, it could be a liquid, or it could be a gas, right? And then what else? In a physical change, we can talk about size and shape. So when we talk about size, we're saying, how much space matter occupies, because we know that all forms of matter take up space or occupy volume, and they've got mass. So when we talk about size, we actually referring to the amount of space that a particular form of matter or material occupies. And also we can talk about shape. Remember, when we talk about shape, it has a lot to do with properties or microscopic properties of that material. That entirely depends on how the particles that make up that particular substance are actually packaged. So some actually have got very little spaces, Some, they've got, by comparison, lots of spaces between whatever particles. And the word particle is used generally. So we can talk of atoms if it's a pure substance, which is an element. We can talk about, molecules if it's a pure substance, which is actually, a compound, okay? We can also talk about mixtures, all of those. But at the end of the day, we would say then, in terms of properties, some, materials in a certain state, they've got what we call a fixed volume or shape. In other words, they've got a definite shape. But over and above, all forms of matter or everything around us actually occupies space, right? So what actually affects the size and shape of of a material. When you cut it, it could actually change the size, make it smaller, and also change the shape. Sometimes the shape may remain the same, but remember the big question is, are the types of changes the same when it occurs with respect to matter? Then we can also talk about bending, which could also affect the shape, okay, as well as stretching. So if you look at these two changes, which affects both size and shape, they have to do with applying a force on a material, which is also, largely influenced by, the type of packaging of particles making up that particular material or a substance, right? Okay, we also know something about mixtures, okay, in terms of alloys. Now we can talk about mixing solids and liquids or gases, as well as mixing solids and liquids, as well as liquids and gases. But essentially, it's about the three phases of matter, right? So that's as far as, our thinking in terms of the big question. So they think about it in terms of, the types of change a material undergoes in terms of shape and size. And that has a lot of, implications in as far as, the microscopic properties that make up that particular type of a material. Okay, we'll take a short breather for now and then look at more types of change and look into some of the, characteristics of those changes in terms of answering the big question. Let's take a short break for now.